It's early July and we're past the longest day. We're officially at the start of summer, and I'm sure many of you were pleased to be back at the Highland Show in person this year. I certainly was. We've been having calls from vets in practice describing skin lesions in cattle across the country, and in the winter time, often skin conditions are due to ectoparasites, so parasites that live in the skin, such as lice or mites, or perhaps in house cattle, ringworm, which is a fungal infection, can cause skin lesions in cattle. But these are much less common when cattle are outside. And recently, we've been diagnosing cases of photosensitisation, so that's sunburn in cattle. This can be caused by eating certain plants, such as St. John's wort, that have got photodynamic agents that result in this hypersensitivity to the sun. Another cause of photosensitisation can be if there's liver damage, then you can get secondary photosensitisation due to that. Typically with photosensitisation, lesions are seen on the paler, unpigmented areas of skin, and these areas will become reddened. The skin might even ooze, and over time it will become dry and could slough off. So it's a really painful condition, and it's important, particularly if you've identified toxic plants, to remove them off that pasture. Ideally, affected cattle should be housed so that they're protected from the UV light. And remember that flies could irritate and make these lesions even worse, so good fly control is an important part of treatment. We have, however, made more diagnosis of more unusual conditions, skin conditions in cattle in recent weeks. So we've had one case of cutaneous lymphoma. So this is a skin tumour that can affect cattle. It usually just happens as a one-off in a herd, and it usually just affects young cattle, so cattle typically less than 2 years of age. Another cause of skin lesions that's slightly more unusual is malignant Kataro fever. So we've spoken about this before. This is the condition in cattle that's caused by a virus, ovine herpes virus in sheep. You don't get any signs in the sheep at all, but it can cause disease in cattle. And so the first signs sometimes of MCF in cattle can be skin lesions, but often there will be a really high temperature associated with that as well. So if you are seeing unusual skin conditions in your cattle, do speak to your vet so that we can ensure we get the right diagnosis and treatment if possible. At this time of year, we also see cases of neurological disease in lambs, and one of the most common reasons for that is cerebrocortical necrosis, or CCN. So this is caused when there is a diet change. This means that the rumen bacteria, the microbes in the rumen, change, and this induces a deficiency in vitamin B1, which is also known as thiamine. So this happens when there's a diet change, so perhaps moving to a different pasture, introducing creep feed, or perhaps weaning could all be triggers for CCN to happen. Affected lambs might initially present as being blind, so they might start bumping into things. This might progress to recumbency and stargazing, so lying with their necks stretched out and looking up to the sky. If these cases can be diagnosed promptly, so if you get your vet out quickly, then we've got a much better response to treatment, and IV thiamine can really give successful results. Another really common disease that can cause brain lesions in lambs, again it can happen at this time of year, is pulpy kidney due to Clostridium perfringens. So all sheep are susceptible to Clostridium perfringens, and most breeding flocks will be vaccinated against it. And the vaccination of the dams gives protection to very young lambs through their colostrum. The issue is, by this age, the maternally derived antibodies will have waned, therefore lambs are very susceptible to this condition. So pulpy kidney can present as recumbent lambs or perhaps blind lambs, but more typically it will present as sudden death. So do speak to your vet to check that your lambs are fully vaccinated against clostridial disease. Well, I hope the sun continues to shine and we get enough rain to keep the grass growing, and we'll see you next time.